Hello and welcome to the Current Podcast. Today I'm here with Curtis and we're going to be talking about a subject that I think is relevant for everyone right now, especially while we're stuck at home. We're going to be talking about entertainment. So we're going to discuss TV, books, movies, anything that falls under that umbrella.
All of the above, yeah. We figured since, you're sitting at home, you're just binge watching whatever show it is that you're watching, why not talk entertainment? It's something that takes up a lot of our time. It's something that we deal with every single day. So yeah, we should think well about what we as Christians and people want to consume for content.
Yeah. And I just want to put a disclaimer right at the front because I have very strong opinions about the media I consume. I'm sure you do too. So I would say that this conversation isn't really prescriptive. It's just going to kind of be us sharing our experiences and the way we've navigated, and some of what we say you may not like and you may disagree with, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's what this space is for. We want to have a spot where we can say, look, we as Christians can disagree on some things. We understand. I like that. This is going to be not necessarily prescriptive, but descriptive. This is how we enjoy our media and our thoughts on it. But yeah, it might not necessarily be yours. But the good thing is we can still disagree and get along. You might not like the movies I like, but that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so to start off with, just so people know where we're coming from, what is your favorite book or TV show or movie? Just pick one of those categories.
Okay, obviously that's so huge. I can't, put me on the spot here a little bit. Okay, if I'm going to go with a movie, and this is the one that just came to mind, it's not like my favorite movie of all time.
Okay.
But a classic for me that I've always loved is The Matrix.
Oh, gosh.
Have you ever watched it?
Yes, it's a good movie. That's just like such a classic, like fanboy answer.
Yeah, it's so good. I don't know. I grew up doing martial arts, all that kind of stuff. So it had this mixture I loved of like crazy action fights, but also I liked the sci-fi, weird, dystopian kind of vibe it gave. So
yeah, and there's like a lot of like hidden themes kind of if you really, really want to go deep and analyze it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a smart movie, and I like that. You have to think a little bit. You have to, it's something that, I don't know, you can dive deep into, and I like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What about you?
My favorite movie of all time is Jurassic Park.
I knew this about you. In fact, when you first started to come here to work, I remember having the discussion of like movies and stuff. But if I remember right, you feel very strongly that like the new Jurassic Park is bad.
Oh, it's garbage. I saw the first one with Chris Pratt, and I will never watch another one unless, there's a gun to my head. I'm not into them. The other Jurassic Park sequels are okay. I think 3 is better than 2, but really like Jurassic Park as a standalone movie, like cinema doesn't get better. It just doesn't.
I think you're going to make some people mad. You're going to pick some fights. People love their Chris Pratt. I don't know what it is, but people love Chris Pratt.
Yeah, and no shade to him. I just think those movies are... Ugh.
You're more of a Jeff Goldblum kind of guy.
Jeff Goldblum and Sam Neill. I love Sam Neill. I had the biggest crush on him as a kid watching those movies.
That's funny. I'm trying to think. I definitely saw the Jurassic Park movies growing up, or at least the original one, but I don't think I can think through any of the sequels following it. Like if I'm not watching the original Jurassic Park, what's the next go-to one?
I say 3. My husband will fight me on this. He is a huge fan of the second one, but I say 3 is better, and you don't really need the second one.
Okay. I'll remember that. It's the same thing with The Matrix. The first one's the best. Everything else doesn't really matter. It just kind of goes downhill from there.
Exactly. Okay, so we should move on from ourselves.
Yes. Move on to something else. Yeah, okay. Well, I guess maybe let's start and just say entertainment as a whole. Sometimes we said people might not necessarily agree with our take on it. There's some different approaches for people as Christians to think about how they consume media. I don't know about you, but at least with myself going through Bible college, seeing some people, you see some interesting perspectives.
Yes.
Where's some spots that you think maybe Christians struggle, or maybe, I don't know if get it wrong is the best way to put it, but where have you seen like Christians engaging with entertainment badly?
I think that, wow, that's just really broad. I think that it's just so hard because I feel like every person, you have to have your own convictions. You have to know yourself. You have to be responsible about what you're consuming and know what's going to be harmful to you and what's not. I think the biggest thing I've seen that's an issue with Christians is the judgment on others. I'm only going to watch movies made by the creator of VeggieTales, and I think you are going to burn in hell for watching Harry Potter. So that kind of overall judgment of like, this is what's good for me, so it must be what's good for you.
Yeah, that's such a good point too. We think, and that's part of it here. We realize there's not necessarily a one size fits all answer here. Like, I'd love to sit here and say, well, here's the kind of stuff you can watch, here's the kind of stuff that you can't watch. But really, it's not that black and white, right?
No, it's not.
There's a lot of gray room. Not everything's made by the VeggieTales makers. And I guess that's important too to know, right? As Christians in consuming entertainment, does that mean we're only supposed to consume exclusively like quote unquote Christian entertainment, or what does that even look like, you know?
Well, I hope not. No offense to Christian entertainment. And you may be shocked hearing this from your worship pastor, but I hate Christian contemporary music. I hate it. I think it is awful. I have seen very few like Christian films that I like. And in fact, most of them I see the trailer and I will never watch them ever, just because I feel like they're lower quality, and it feels like people are just kind of copying and pasting what's already out there and then trying to add Jesus to it, but it makes it worse.
Yeah. Not that I don't think there's anything fake about Christian media. I think the people that are making like overtly Christian entertainment are trying to do so well. You know, I think it's all the good intentions, but I think there is something where, it tends to be, I don't know if corny is the right word, but
it absolutely is.
But that's something interesting. Like, as a Christian, like I feel hesitant to suggest any sort of like Christian film and music to kind of a broader culture, because it is so, I don't know, like no one throws on a Christian movie and it's like, wow, that was incredible. That was an incredible cinematic experience.
Oh, you mean God's Not Dead didn't change your life?
No, it didn't the first viewing, at least. Maybe I need to give it another try. But I don't know. If we as Christians can engage in material that's not just like, as explicitly talking about Jesus, what are some like rules of thumb or working through? Okay, so can we watch like Harry Potter? I guess that's really what I want to know, Prudence. Can I watch Harry Potter?
That's what's important to you. Okay, so first of all, I want to take a step back, and I do want to apologize to people who like God's Not Dead and like Christian radio.
Yes.
As I said, these are my opinions, and they are strong, and I know I'm a snob, but no judgment. If that's the life you choose to lead, whatever brings you joy. So just wanted to take a step back there before someone comes at me with a pitchfork.
It's probably good.
But I would say, I don't think that as Christians we can just say like, truth is relative and, whatever's good for me is what's good for me. But I do think there's something, and I talked about this with the Purity podcast of you have to know yourself and be honest with yourself, and you have to be listening to the Holy Spirit and know what is going to be okay for you to consume and what's going to be harmful. There are things that I watch that people would be very upset that I watch as a pastor. And there are things that everyone else watches that I can't watch because it disturbs me. It frightens me, So I don't want to say it depends, but I do think it depends.
That's exactly right, though. We often want, again, that nice black and white answer, but I think it is one of those things where you almost have to leave it up to conscience in some way. I don't think we have I don't have a good, strong enough reason to sit and tell someone, oh, no, you can't watch X movie, you can't watch Y or Z movie. And I think it is a matter of knowing yourself well, saying that it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. And maybe we can jump into some more specifics here in terms of what that looks like. But, I even think consuming media that has like a bent toward maybe violence or something like that, how do we navigate that as Christians? Should we watch like super gory stuff? What do we do there?
What do we do there, Curtis? You tell me.
Flip it around on me. Yeah, it's tough for sure. And there is something to be said about what we consume, what we watch does affect us. Definitely. I think it'd be naive and wrong to say that, the role of entertainment in our lives definitely forms and shapes us to a degree. But I think what's been a helpful analogy for me, at least, is knowing as a Christian consumer of media how to separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yes.
Oftentimes we kind of need to take it as whole meal and say, well, I can either watch this or I can't watch it, or it's altogether good or it's altogether bad. But that's not really how the world works. There's good, there's bad. And as Christians, we're going to engage with a world that's full of good things and bad things, and need to know how to navigate that well, separate those things, affirm what's good, swallow the meat and spit out the bones, I guess.
Yeah. And I think we have to know And again, be actually honest with ourselves. Use those critical thinking skills that you got from high school, from your English class, and think about how this is influencing you. What are the messages you're receiving? And I know no one wants to sit through a movie and be like, yes, what are the messages I'm receiving? But really, I think about, the music I'm listening to. Again, a lot of people in this church would be not very happy with some of the songs I listen to. But you have to think about, like, is this actually influencing my thinking? Is my, listening to Kanye West's album from, whatever back in the day, before he found Jesus and made his gospel album, like, is it actually changing the way I think about women? Is it actually making me dehumanize other people? Is it actually making me want to go and, sell drugs or whatever? For me, no. Like, I'm enjoying the beats. I'm enjoying, listening to it. It's improving my mood. It's inspiring me when I'm exercised to go to the next level. But maybe a TV show for me that's a little bit darker, a little bit moodier for my mental health. I know, like, it's going to put me in a darker headspace, and I can't always be consuming that. So it's really just a matter of, again, really, really, really being honest with yourself.
Yeah. We have to know ourselves well. We have to know what can, I guess, trigger us, I guess, so to speak. We really have to know. And that's true. There's a difference between, someone who sits down and watches something like Game of Thrones or something where there is a high level of some sexual content. And so people are like, whoa, hold on, I can't handle it. And I think, again, it's not something where it's one size fits all, needing to know someone that's struggled lifelong in terms of issues with pornography or some sort of sexual addiction. Obviously, they're going to need to handle and be around that material slightly differently than someone who might not be as affected by that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm feeling a little called out here with the Game of Thrones thing. Again, like, we had kind of talked about this of, all right, fire me now. I get it. Like, I do watch Game of Thrones, but because for me, it's not an issue, like some of the violence and gore in it is just so obviously fake. Like,
Sure.
It doesn't disturb me. The sex, the nudity, it's not an issue, just nothing's happening for me there. It's not an issue. But, some other movies like I saw 1917, great movie, about World War I and what happened there. But it was so intense and it was so violent, like that. I left the theater like so upset and so disturbed just because I was seeing so much gore and explicit violence and really thinking about, left the theater thinking about the implications of war and how every person who is on those front lines in the battlefield is a person with a family and a name and a story. And so, you just have to think about how the stories and the things you're watching and listening to are affecting you. I feel like I just keep saying that over and over again.
But it's true. And, I think about the same way that someone who's wrestled and struggled with, alcohol abuse for a number of years might need to avoid some social situations where there's heavy drinking for sure.
Yeah.
Whereas other people I know who are Christians who can say like, no, this isn't a personal issue for me. I'm capable of expressing self-restraint here. I can be in this situation. And we just have to use some wisdom. We just have to work through that a little bit. I wonder, talking about violence, talking about sex, what's strange for me is we'll be really critical of it in the content we consume, in terms of the media we consume, excuse me. But what I find really interesting, maybe get some of your thoughts on this, our like religious text is very violent and sexual, and there's all sorts of stuff going on in there. Like, sometimes people are really offended by what's going on in film, and I want to be like, have you read the Bible? You're going to blush.
Yes, like HBO. There's your next source material. Like, come on.
Yeah, it has, and it's always a strange thing, I think even, not to take this a whole nother direction, but, when it comes to putting the Bible in front of children, like, what stories do we engage with? I'm going to be honest, there's stuff that's not suitable for children in the Bible.
Oh my goodness, yes. Like, we're teaching people about Genesis, and if you are someone who interprets the Bible literally, like within the first few chapters of the Bible, you're telling your kids that God decided to murder everyone with a flood.
Yeah. What's a nice little children's story about a floating zoo actually isn't so nice. That's like a tough thing. Or I think, look at the book of Judges. You have a a woman who's being, cut into pieces and mailed throughout the land. Like, this is very graphic, very intense stuff, not necessarily suitable for children.
Oh, but it's the Bible, Curtis.
Right. Now we can consume that kind of media.
Yeah. And that's where I think with, consuming secular media, I think that if we're limiting ourselves just to like the Christian content, we're missing some of the human experience. Like, human beings, like, there are wars. We see violence around us. We see poverty. We see oppression. Like, we're human beings. We're sexual creatures. We have relationships with people, and there's love and loss. And I think that's what a lot of the Christian media is missing. That's part of what I don't like about like contemporary Christian music is, for me, and I'm going to go on a rant, so forgive me, but
we're ready.
For me, I feel like a lot of it is, one, just the sound is just, it all sounds the same. Every single song sounds the same, but they're all saying the same thing over and over again. I was sad, now I'm happy, I have Jesus, la, 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 la. Whereas with other music, you're getting the full spectrum of human emotion, and you look at the Psalms, and there are Psalms of lament. There are Psalms where the author was literally saying, like, God, my life is a mess. Like, I hate you. Like, what is happening? And our Christian music doesn't really do that. When I'm down in the dumps, I need to go listen to a Taylor Swift breakup song. I need to listen to some music that makes me want to smash some windows, if for nothing else, for the emotional release. And yes, at the end of the day, I know my identity in Christ. I know who God is. I know who I am. But sometimes we need time to just sit with those feelings. Sometimes we need to hear and see stories that we can relate to, that represent the full spectrum of human emotion and experience. And I just don't see that with a lot of Christian content.
I think that's super good. I think that puts some language to it for me too. It's so overtly Jesus-y that it feels like it misses out, on so much more that, I do. I watch, what would be considered a secular piece of film, and I often walk away more impacted, more introspective, more resonating with the content than I would with, a lot of what would be considered Christian media. And that's important to, validate and recognize, we need the full spectrum of human emotions to be embodied in our media. We can't live in Easter 24/7, dancing around the empty tomb. That's not how it is. Christianity is not a triumphalist religion. It's very real about just the brokenness and the difficulty. And if we aren't reflecting that in our music and our movies, I think people realize, like, this is fake, Oh, it looks nice, but if we're not giving a real depiction, it's tough for people to lean in.
Yeah. So, answer the question: can Christians watch Harry Potter?
Okay,
or read Harry Potter.
Yeah, exactly. Books and media, and movies too. So, as you said, it depends, right? I don't want to say it's a one-size-fits-all thing. If it's something that really bothers someone, I wouldn't say, you have to sit down and consume this media. But here's what I would say is, I don't think we can confidently, as Christians, go tell other Christians, it is wrong for you to consume this kind of media. Yeah. And I know that might come as a shock to some people. They'll think, like, what? Harry Potter? Like, there's wizards and stuff in that, And this is something that really does happen. For instance, I worked at the library for quite some time when I was in Bible college. And coming through all the time was groups of new students who were checking out the campus for the first time. And without fail, every time we'd lead them by kind of like the DVD movie section, there's at least one or two students who are just dumbfounded that we have copies of Harry Potter available for checkout. And I think they start to have this internal crisis, even like, oh my gosh, this school, I thought they were good and Christian, and yet there's Harry Potter. What's, again, so important for me is being able to be mature Christians and separate the wheat from the chaff, be able to eat the meat, spit out the bones, and being able to say, okay, I realize that there are certain themes going on in Harry Potter that aren't maybe something I want to adopt in my worldview. But that doesn't mean that all that Harry Potter has to offer is stuff about witchcraft and the occult, that there aren't other genuine, good, redeemable themes and qualities that are going on in this movie that we can take from and learn from. And so it always has frustrated me when we try to make this really neat division between the secular and the sacred. It's secular and the sacred, excuse me. It's not that easy. It runs through us. It runs through our movies. It's complex, and I think we should be okay with that. and realizing there are sacred elements here in this movie that I can recognize as a Christian. Yeah. And there's not sacred ones that I need to be, diverting my attention from.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, while it is a great story of, wizards and magic and this fantastical world, like at the end of the day, it's about a struggle between good and evil. And you also see other themes like, I'm going to put on my Harry Potter nerd hat now with like the house elves and slavery and wrestling with that and, muggles versus, whatever. And talking, we see kind of some racial tensions almost with people that come from that. And I also always have found the Harry Potter argument funny because I came from a household where when I was younger, my parents were like, that's witchcraft. You'll never, sorry, mom and dad. Like, I love those books now. But then I think about books by like C.S. Lewis or Tolkien and hello, Lord of the Rings, Christian author. But what do we have? We've got wizards. We've got magic.
Yeah. And what a great example too of, Christian media that, I guess when I think of some of the most successful examples of Christian media, it's not the overtly in your face. And there is a time and a place for this. Absolutely. But it's funny to me that, it's the Lord of the Rings. It's the Chronicles of Narnia that that make their way into a sphere of influence outside of the church even, And so I think between the Chronicles of Narnia and some very, very, very explicitly Christian book, I think something like the Chronicles of Narnia has a much better ability to go beyond the walls of the church and to meet those people in a real lived experience. They can connect with this story without having to be like, Jesus, and turn off right away.
Yeah. Well, I think about that too in terms of, that's kind of how we as Christians want to live our lives, right? Every single conversation I have with every single person I encounter is not Jesus, 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 Jesus. In fact, I would say that's very small, which maybe sounds horrible, from a pastor, but I'm not going up to, the barista at the coffee shop and like, hey, have you heard about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? But my hope is that through the way I live my life as a three-dimensional human being, people will see Jesus in me and experience him through that. And I think that's kind of the way I hope Christian media can move.
Yeah. The thought that to make Christian content means that we have to explicitly utilize the name of Christ, I think is a misnomer for me. And again, we need room for that in the church. We need overtly Christian worship music. There's a place for those kind of films and stuff. But I think it's oftentimes, the non-Christian media that has the best ability to convey a Christian message.
Really, though, really. I will say that you do have to be mindful, I think, of who is watching. If you have kids, maybe Friends isn't the best show to have on in the background. Maybe Sex and the City is not what you want to watch when your kids are around. And I think we do have to be careful about that because I do think as Christians, we need to be setting an example and we are held to a higher standard. But I also think some people can take it too far, right? I know some people who have made this vow that like, I will never go see a rated R movie in the theaters because like, I don't want people to know that I see this movie, or think I'm advocating for this content.
Yeah.
So there's, I don't know. I don't really know where I was going with that line of thought, but help me out, Curtis.
Well, it's tough when people also think, again, that to consume any sort of media is like a wholesale endorsement of the product. Like, if I can think of movies that I love where the language is just intense, extreme, and constant, like to a point where it's unnecessary. Like it takes away from the film for me.
Yeah.
But like, I'm okay consuming content that might be a bit more explicit in knowing myself and knowing like this isn't an issue. Like we shouldn't be naive to the fact like this is how the world talks. This is how things are going to happen. Like, and I'm going to have to encounter those things in my daily life and process it, understand how it relates to me as a Christian and move on. Like I need to be able to do that in my movies too. And I think the best films I've had include some stuff that I wouldn't want to be endorsing, but again, there's redeemable qualities. And I think that's a very Christian perspective, not to say, oh, forget all this. We're only doing our own little Christian thing, but rather to say, no, what can we enter into and find as redemptive here? What can we find as value? And I think that's just what good Christians do.
Yes, absolutely. And, on the other side of that, I think we've talked a lot about like being okay with things. I do think we have to be comfortable and confident enough to turn something off, to walk away. If I'm with friends and we're watching a movie and, for me, it's a lot of like darker, heavier stuff that like, I can't handle. So if I know we're watching a movie that is really just going to like give me nightmares or, you know, put me in a bad headspace. Like I have to be confident enough to walk away and say, I can't watch this right now. You know, it's okay to turn something off.
Yeah. And that's a really, I'm glad you brought that up too, because it is important to know, again, with almost any topic we could talk about on here, there's always like the two ditches. We can go to either extreme. We can be like, oh, yeah, I shouldn't watch anything that could have anything that's even a hint of remotely non-Christian content. But then we can swing the other way and say, oh, it doesn't matter. Let me just consume whatever I want as much as I want. It doesn't matter. And we want to find a middle ground here.
Yes, absolutely.
It matters. What we watch does influence us. It can affect us, and it has the ability to pull people into dark headspaces, or has the ability to trigger people in ways that they, you know, probably don't need to be if they would have just expressed some wisdom. I think about like Jesus. He tells us we need to be as shrewd as serpents, as innocent as doves, and I go back to that all the time. I love that. There should be an innocence to us, right? But we should be street smart. We should be shrewd. We should be wise. We shouldn't be naive people. And so I feel that way about when it comes to just consuming content in general.
Yes, absolutely. Because whatever song you listen to, it's going to run through your head later. You know, whatever TV show you're binging, you're going to start quoting it, right? You're going to be thinking about it. And so, just proceed with care and caution and know it's okay to stop. Know it's okay to return to something later. Know it's okay to ask questions, to look up spoilers, to look up reviews so you have a good idea of what you're consuming.
Yeah. We want to be responsible consumers for sure. I guess thinking through not even just movies, TV, that kind of stuff. Have you ever come across, and this might be a bit niche, but like I know when I was at college, right at the end of my time, what started becoming really popular around there was like Dungeons and Dragons and like that kind of those kind of games, right? And people, it became a debate on campus. There was like, can we, does this have place in a Bible college? Something like this, you know?
Oh my.
Entertainment is sometimes like, you know, we're consuming stories, but what about like, video games, you know? I'm sure, you know, your husband, you know, play video games every now and again.
Yeah. Oh, every now and again. Not to be passive aggressive there. You know, again, I just keep coming back to this. You just have to know yourself and be careful. For me, do I like video games that are violent? Not so much. I'm very anti-violence. You know, am I going to see every Avengers movie ever? Yes. Is that a little different? Yes.
Sure.
Do I think that every person who plays violent video games is going to become a serial killer? No.
Really?
I know. You're relieved for that.
I am.
I, again, don't know where I was going with any of this just then.
Well, we're talking about video games.
Okay, yes.
Right. We have to, separate those kind of things. And it's so funny, like the idea that it's the same thing with Harry Potter, Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, that like these forms of entertainment are like opening our minds and making us susceptible to the occult and the demonic attack. And again, we had a recent episode talking about the demonic. I want to affirm its place in reality. Like there are agents for evil. There is things that I don't know that we want to be like messing around with, so to speak.
Right.
But again, to conflate the watching of Harry Potter with like the diving into the practices of the occult just feels like, whoa, a few steps too far. Like the idea of a slippery slope is bad argument.
Right. Yeah. Just because I looked up like my horoscope in Cosmo this week doesn't mean I'm on my way to becoming a witch. Right.
What are you, by the way?
I'm a Libra.
Oh, I'm a Capricorn. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what any of them mean either, but I'm narcissistic enough that I want to know what I am.
Typical Libra.
I know. I actually don't think that's typical.
I don't.
I have no idea. Someone tell me about astrology and why it matters. But every area, I think there's an opportunity for us to overreact, right? I think about like dancing, and some people are like very anti-dancing. I feel like that's getting rarer and rarer. Think about the town in Footloose, though. Like,
right.
Like it's evil. It's gonna lead. You know, dancing could lead to sex, or what's the joke? What's the joke? Music may lead to dancing, or something.
Or yeah,
there's something like that, right? I think you and I, and hopefully everyone listening to this knows that dancing isn't going to lead to sex. Like it's okay to dance. And, you think about the Bible, like David danced before the Lord.
Sure, yeah.
But it's how you consume it. Maybe some dancing will lead to sex depending on what kind it is and who you're doing it with.
Definitely.
And it's knowing, what you're entering into, I guess.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all kind of thing. And knowing well, you make the joke about Footloose, but at the college I went to, there were no school dances for that reason. Like, but here's the thing. It was, and they wouldn't say that you couldn't dance or go. It was kind of gray. And they were in a space where I think, over the years, Christians have kind of shifted and had different thoughts on it. So their views and their opinions were evolving, but that's still something that's definitely around and active. And there is that slippery slope mentality that, like, should I do anything that could remotely resemble it, it's going to, should I play a violent video game, I'm going to become someone that's doing violent things.
Yeah.
Should I dance a little bit, next thing I know, I'm just running around, having sex all the time. But there is such a thing as restraint. We can practice that, The slippery slope is not a good argument.
Yeah. And, I think restraint is maybe something as Christians, we either don't talk about enough or we talk about too much. And I feel like so much of the podcast with the things we're going to talk about, it's finding a middle ground. It's finding a gray area. It's us saying, there is not necessarily something definitively right or wrong in this section, but again, it's that discernment piece that's going to come in every time. And when we're navigating things like this, when you're deciding, what music you're going to listen to on the way to work, what movie you're going to watch with your family tonight, it's just really putting on our thinking caps and thinking critically about, is this going to take me further from Jesus? Is this going to hurt me? Is this going to affect the way I think about and therefore treat other people?
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, you can watch an unchristian movie that produces Christian fruit in the sense of, like, this compels me to think about being a better person, loving my neighbor better. Sure, it wasn't just wrapped up in all of this Jesusness, but yet it's still producing the kind of fruit that we would look for in a Christian. And so, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, I guess. We want to be sure that we're taking the good things too.
Exactly. And I guess the last thing I would want to say about this is I do think we have to be careful too when we want to be so far removed and so extreme about it. I think we make ourselves unrelatable, right? We put ourselves in these holy Christian bubbles and we're not interacting with other people or other ideas or aware of the things that are happening in the culture around us. And for me, a lot of people find me very approachable when they hear, what my favorite singer is or what my favorite movie is. And it can lead to conversations and relational development. And I'm not saying that, everyone needs to go get an HBO subscription so you can make friends. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think we have to be careful not to just stay in our holy huddles.
That's so good. And I like the notion of people are almost invited in. They feel more comfortable talking to you when you're like, oh yeah, I watch Breaking Bad, or I watch, Stranger Things, or whatever it is, and be able to have those kind of conversations. And I think sometimes you can draw, again, it's not overtly Christian media, but it addresses things that are important to us as Christians. You can have those kind of conversations watching Harry Potter and saying, talking about this struggle between good and evil. Or a lot of times the strings that movies can pull on our heart are also the same strings that the Christian life is trying to pull on, right? Those same strings of longing or inadequacy or brokenness, like they run through our movies too. And if you can pull that string, have those kind of conversations, it naturally leads and lends itself, I think, to spiritual conversations too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, any other final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I guess what I'll leave is, I know, like we said from the beginning, people have difference of opinions in terms of the media you want to consume. And I think for me, at the end of the day, I want to tell people, follow your conscience. As Christians, we can't make these blanketed statements. So one, follow your conscience. If there's stuff that you feel is not good for you to consume, that's fine. Don't consume it. Honor that conscience. At the same time, let's not judge a brother or a sister based on their consumption and jump to conclusions that, like, how could you be a Christian wow, watching Harry Potter, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Allow room for some disagreement and don't assume the worst of a person just because they don't consume the kind of media that you do, I guess.
Oof, that is good. I think we've got to leave it there.
I think we do. Okay, well, here, let me leave it with this one last thing. Give somebody, right now they're about to end this podcast episode, what's something they can go watch, listen to, movie, TV. Give a final entertainment recommendation. I know you're not ready for this at all.
Okay. So I have been... Okay, two things.
Okay.
I have two. So both are things I've watched all the way through, so it's fine. One, I'm restarting The West Wing, and I just love it.
Wow.
I love it. And I think, I don't want to get political, but it is interesting from the beginning to watch kind of this tension between faith and politics, especially in the show, the main character, President Bartlett, is a very strong Christian. He also has like people on his staff who are Jewish. And so I think that is super interesting, particularly in this climate to watch that. So I love that. Also just like love the 90s and like early 2000s fashion.
Yes.
The other thing I would recommend is it's a movie or TV show, excuse me. And if you're listening, it's SCHITT, Schitt's Creek.
Oh, I've heard of this.
So good, so funny, so just joyful. I feel like a lot of sitcoms, it's kind of bent on like tearing people down and making sarcastic jokes. But at the end of the day, it's just this family that loves each other. And it's just like every time I watch it, it just fills me with so much joy. So if you're looking for a fun, lighthearted TV show, that's the one.
Right now, we all could use some lighthearted TV shows.
Okay. And you?
Okay. Well, speaking of lighthearted, I think that's what I'm drawn right now. I feel like everything's intense, tension's high. I'm in the mode right now where I just want to watch something that lets me just relax and find some joy. And this may surprise some of you.
Oh, I know what you're gonna say. I know what you're gonna say.
But I have found recently, and this is not on brand for me, but I love the Great British Baking Show. Okay, I do. I love it so much, and I think it's time for the world to know. I'm not ashamed to say it anymore. It's so joyful. One, I can't bake anything ever. I've made cookies once or twice. And so it's not like I'm drawn to the baking thing. I don't know. They're just all so pleasant. They're all so British. They're also like, it's a serious competition. They're for real trying to like do things I never could. But they're so kind to each other. They help each other out. I don't know. I watch the Great British Baking Show, and I just leave more hopeful for humanity. And I also want to eat delicious food. And that's where I want to be in life.
Yes, that's exactly what you want to walk away from. Like, watching something, that's the attitude you want to have.
So as soon as you're done here, go check it out. Great British Baking Show. I promise you will not be disappointed.
And I think all those three things we mentioned, they're all on Netflix, right?
Yeah. Shameless plug, I guess.
So Netflix, if you want to sponsor us, we're here for you.
We're ready for it. Yeah. Definitely check those out.
Yeah.
So good.
So before we sign off, we just want to let you guys know, this is for us. Again, I hate this, how cheesy this sounds, but this is a ministry. This is the way we want to reach you guys. And this has been a really fun conversation, I think, for us, but we want to talk about things that really matter to you. So if you guys have feedback, if you have a topic you're dying to hear, the pastoral team here discuss, like send us an email, comment on this video, call us, tweet us, like we're everywhere.
Yeah. We want to have this be something that's not for us, but for everybody. And we want to know, what's interesting to you? What are some things that are pressing in your mind? Maybe it is you want to talk about movies. Maybe you want to talk about nerdy theology stuff, whatever it is. We just want to meet you where you're at.
I really hope they want to talk about movies. I could do a whole spinoff from this just
all right,
about movies.
Get ready for part 2. It's coming.
It surely is. All right. Well, I think we are definitely out of time now, but it has been so good having this discussion with you. We hope this has been impactful for you guys, and we will see you guys again next week on The Current.